Yes, that's right. It's Joe here live for Joyrider TV, back with some more very interesting catamaran sailing chat and answering your questions live. Okay, so we're just going to start off with one big question, and then after that I'll check in with everybody who's checking in and we will continue. So the first question is from Shaky69. Here we go. So I've been taught to sheet out, travel out on the high wind jibe. Seems fair so far. Instead of letting the wind pull the sail around the jibe, initiate your turn. When the apparent wind drops, pull the main sheet over and you are through without the wind catching too quickly and capsizing you. Thoughts? Yeah. Okay, so the high wind jibe, a few elements there. Sailing in high wind, generally on the downwind, yes, traveller out, yes, main sheet out. And with the main sheet, firstly, sailing on a broad reach, heavy wind with the main sheet, what are we doing? Let's just say, let's just take it that the traveller is out. So this is new. This is the back of the boat. Traveller position out. Yeah. So main sheet position, what we're trying to achieve, which is, it is difficult to achieve this on the downwind, but we're trying to get the telltales on the mainsail flying while we're sailing downwind, which is going to mean that if we're sailing on our proper downwind course with the apparent wind coming across the boat at 90 degrees, we're going to have the main sheet pretty loose to get those telltales flying. So having the main sheet loose, because we don't want to be oversheeted, because that's going to slow the boat down. And when we're talking about sailing in a high wind downwind and jibing in a high wind downwind, the thing that is going to help us most is speed. The faster that we sail the boat, the less pressure there is from the true wind trying to capsize the boat. If we imagine true wind blowing like this, and if the boat is sailing slowly, the effect that the true wind has pushing in this direction is going to be much more in the way that it's pushing the bows down than if we're sailing faster. Like if the wind, this arrow being closer, is if we're going faster, if we're going slower, whereas if we're going faster, the metaphorical wind arrow is going to be further away, meaning there's less pressure trying to capsize the boat. So this is number one, is sail the boat as fast as we possibly can. Number two, talking about jibing, what are we going to do if we can? We want to reduce the angle that we have to steer to get the boat to go through the jibe. So how are we going to do that? Best way of, because if we just turn the boat more downwind with everything as it is, then the apparent wind is going to be too much from behind. Like if we're going to just sail on this angle with everything as it is, the apparent wind is going to be too far from behind. So the boat is going to slow down. So the true wind strength is going to be much more similar to, or a lot more than the speed of the boat. So what we want to do instead is timing, if the possibility is there. And what the timing is with the jibe in heavy wind is we want to wait for a gust, and then when we get that gust, to keep the apparent wind on the same angle, we're going to turn the boat more downwind, But because there's a gust, we can do that because as we're sailing faster, our induced wind is going to increase, which means the apparent wind is going to come more forwards, which means we can turn more downwind before we put the boat into the jibe. And what this means is that we're going to be able to carry more speed all the way through the process of the jibe. So having done that, are we going to jibe as soon as we've got the gust? No. What we're going to do is take the gust. We're going to use that gust to get further downwind, but keeping our apparent wind at the same angle. And then once it feels the feeling, I compare it to, I call it freewheeling. It's like when you feel that you've got the speed and you've got the angle, but you don't feel that the boat is really loaded up. There's once I'm back on the water, I'll do another video on high wind jibing, but so that the boat doesn't feel loaded up. And then once we've got this apparent wind the same, that is when we're going to put the boat into the jibe. And you can see the angle that we have to turn through here is much less than if we're sailing these regular angles. So what to do with the mainsail? This is the main part of this question. Before, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the traveller and the mainsail to go across as early as we can, because the earlier this goes across, the more speed we'll have, which means the less pressure there will be in the sail when it fills on the new side. Okay, so the way that we're actually going to do this is before we go into the jibe, we're going to bring the traveller in to the tow strap, because the tow strap is the only marker that we've got at the back of the boat to gauge where we're putting the traveller in, but that it is about the right spot. And then when it's time to when we're putting the boat into the jibe, we normally grab hold of the main sheet in a lighter wind and guide it across. But on the jibe, what we're going to do, if this is the boat, here's the mast, and here's the main sheet. We're going to grab the main sheet, that's our hand, and rather than guiding it across, we're going to pull the slack part of the main sheet this way, because what that is going to do, just at that second when you initiate the jibe, pull the main sheet in towards the boat, because what that's going to do to the sail is it's going to pull down on the leech of the sail, tightening the leech up, which means the leech is going to come. The leech is the back edge, by the way, if you're not down with the vernacular. And then the leech is going to come more into the center, which means it's going to go across much earlier. And that is what we're trying to achieve. So if you went into the jibe with the mainsail as far out as possible, what would happen is you'd almost get through the wind like this before the sail goes across. So everything's going to load up with pressure. It's going to be a big one. So that is why we're bringing the traveller in, and we're using this pull the main sheet in towards the mast to get the sail to go across earlier before it loads up with pressure. There we go. Thanks very much for your question, Shaky69. Hope that helps, and I hope that helps everybody else. If you're watching this later, do put in the comments, yes, that helps. No context required. Thank you very much. All right, so into the live chat. Just like to say a big thanks to Bernhard and to Hussein, who have got the ball rolling with this week's super stickers. The super stickers are your way of supporting the Q&A and helping to keep the Q&A ad free. Because without the super stickers, I have to put ads on the video. So next to where you put your live chat, or next to the comments bit, if you're watching later, there is a thing saying super chat or super stickers. Just click on that and off you go. You can be supporting the Q&A, especially if you think that some of the answers are pretty decent. It's a great way of showing me that you think that what we're doing here is worthwhile. Thank you very much. All right, so first off the start line today, we have T Murat 35, who says, can you talk about your new design of Catamaran? Ooh, top secret. Yes. All right. So I think some people are going to think this is pretty ridiculous, but I think it's a great idea. Okay. You may have been aware that I have been sailing the last 2 years an inflatable catamaran, the MiniCat 420. And when the wind comes up, it is so much fun. And actually, when I was sailing the Hobie wave as well. Oh, thank you very much to Steve Jones for the super sticker. All right. Thank you very much. Sorry, I missed you at Hilton Head, but I hope to be there next year. Yes, I will definitely be back at Hilton Head in October this year. So start planning for that trip, because there is not a regatta more fun than that probably anywhere. So yeah, I will see everyone there. All right, so the MiniCat and the Hobie wave, yes, very kind of, let's say, compared to everything else that we talk about here, low performance, but this feel of a really small boat, no need for the trapeze. You know, it's nice to trapeze, but on a really small boat, it's kind of nice just to hike out, like if you're on a dinghy or something. And so what I'm looking at is to take the MiniCat hull shape, which basically is like a complete spherical, circular cylinder with a pointed bow, and get that made with a frame out of lightweight material. I'm thinking carbon fiber. Why wouldn't you? Just like to say thanks very much to Boris for coming in with the super sticker. Thank you very much, Boris. Now, Boris was there at Hilton Head. Great to meet you there, Boris. And hopefully I'll see you there again it's next year, getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah, so basically, carbon fiber MiniCat 420 is the size that I'm going for, because I think it's a really good size. And because it's got loads of volume in the front, so shouldn't nosedive. And rather than traditional catamarans which cut through, this skims. Now, the design part that I'm going to actually change the most, apart from the construction, would be going to have it all molded as well. So no need for a dolphin striker. Instead, what we'll have is molded beams, which actually are molded somehow. Need to speak to a naval architect to find out how to do this. Molded into the hulls. So it's all like one piece, zero flex. Single rudder, I'm thinking, but I could be persuaded otherwise on that. Yeah, but I'm going to replace the plastic skegs for a kind of convertible daggerboard slot kind of thing, where in heavy winds, starting off in heavy winds, we're going to have traditional daggerboards, so that the boat can sail nicely on all points of sail. Be really good. And then in lighter winds, these daggerboards can be taken out and curved foils can be put in, you swap out your rudder blades for some rudder blades with like T-shaped wings on the bottom, and then you've got a very lightweight foiling pocket rocket of a catamaran. But a lot of the foiling boats become very intimidating once you hit like 18 knots of wind. So when you get into that wind strength, take the foils out, put in the straight dagger boards, and you just go out and send it. And it will be so much fun. I'm thinking the complete weight for the whole boat should be no more than 40 kilograms. Yeah, that is not much. 40 kgs, which is 88 pounds. That's not much, is it? Gosh, this will be fun. And then perhaps to have 2 different sail sizes as well. Maybe even just to have one mast. So could either be one mast. I'm thinking the 3-piece mast is good, but I think because it's not going to be quite as portable as an inflatable, 2-piece mast. And perhaps what you do is, if it's really windy, you use what would it be? Probably a different bottom section of mast, which is shorter. So then you have a smaller mainsail when it's super windy. Fun? Yes, that is what I'm thinking. So there we go. If anybody wants to help me build this thing, then we will be having testing weeks out here in Vasiliki, Lefkas, Greece. Yeah, thanks very much for your question, T-Mura35. That is the only answer I've got. So there we go. All right. So we've got Bernhard in the live chat with the super sticker. Hussein is in there with the super sticker. Steve is in there with the super sticker, and Boris is in there with the super sticker. Thank you very much for your support. All right. In the live chat, we've got Yori Zired. Sorry about the pronunciation. I'm not very good at it. I can't wait to come back to Vasiliki. I was there the last week Wildwind was open. Nice. Yes. So pretty much, I could say Wildwind opens, but it's pretty much the whole of Vasiliki opens at the end of April, because before then the weather is still quite inconsistent, and because of that, the places which are essential for a good holiday, which would be bars and restaurants, are not generally open until then, like the end of April. So that is the time to be coming out here. All right, we got Laurie on board in Texas. Great to hear from you, Laurie, and hope you're doing well there. All right, we got Ryan on board, channel member. Ryan, very exciting times for channel members. Oh, yes, because don't worry if you're not a channel member, you can become a channel member. It's easy. Somewhere underneath the video, there's a button that says join. Just click on that. You could become a channel member. But yeah, hello from the deep Pacific, Joyriders. Yes. So new feature for channel members coming start of December, no less, is this week, in fact, I have been very busy in the Joyrider TV Cave of Possibilities studio, filming a new tutorial series, which is a whole series of classroom like this based tutorials on a great many subjects. And by the time this that we get to the start of December, I will have completed 6 modules. It's going up. 6 modules. Each module is split into 5 10-minute lessons. So it will be a very structured, what would you call it? Linear course. So rather than like with the YouTube videos or with the Q&A, just kind of searching for what should I watch next, this will be a linear series to help you sail your catamaran better, regardless of what level you're at. So that is coming soon in December for channel members. So very exciting. And then I'm going to be continuing to be making more modules. So we really are going to cover a huge amount of different topics. And that is going to keep going until basically the summer season starts. So by the time we get to April, there should be something in the region of 20-25 modules there. But why don't you just wait until April? I'll tell you why. Because if you go into it and there's 25 modules there is too much information to digest. So why not get the ones that are already there digested, and then as the new ones come out, be more like watching TV back in the day before streaming services. You wait for the new series to come out and then you watch that week, 10 minutes a day, take notes. And then that means you'll be able to absorb much more of the information. So that is the exciting news for channel members. So Trisha, also channel member, great to have you on board, Trisha. Are you heading towards a guppy? So the guppy is the smallest of the MiniCat range, and I'm thinking that the 420 for me is the kind of size-wise that is the sweet spot. Okay, Boris, greetings from Florida. Boris, also a channel member. Great to have you in the gang. All right, we got Hans on board from freezing Germany. Yeah. This week in Vasiliki news, it has been so much rain and so stormy that for those of you who've been here, the second little bridge as you walk from Wildwind to the village has actually had water going over the top of it, and it has made a significant mess of that bridge. There you go, news just in. Okay, next in the preloaded questions. This is from Eric in Niceville, Florida. I spent yesterday working on the broad reach in 8 to 18 miles per hour of wind. When a gust would come, I would start turning downwind. Very good. And many times save it from a pitch pole. Fun seeing that leeward bow plunge underwater, then emerge. Yes. Okay, so yeah, we're talking about the same sort of thing here. Speed is your friend. Okay. Eric continues. I'm running my Hobie 14 Turbo on a broad reach with the Traveller all the way out. Very good. Main sheet tight, almost block to block. Eyebrow raised. However, I was just watching a video of the winner in a Hobie 16 race, their downwind run. Main sheet had about 15 inches between the blocks. Upwind, they were running block to block. Yes. So, yes, the reason that your leeward bow is going underwater in that sort of wind is because you've got too much main sheet in. What is having too much main sheet in going to do for you? Essentially, you are oversheeting your main on the downwind, which is oversheeting is the main thing, the most effective way of slowing your boat down. So as we said, when your boat slows down, if I could have this so the arrow got bigger, that would be better. But the pressure from the true wind is going to get far greater as you slow your boat down. And as the pressure gets greater, the bows are going to dip more. And it's going to be like a vicious circle of fear. Maybe not like fear, oh my gosh, I'm scared, but fear in the sense, it might be, oh my gosh, I'm scared, but it'll be fear in the sense of, if I push the boat any harder, the bows are going to go under the water. And whether you're scared of that or not, it is not something that you want to have in your mind. So have the main sheet out more, boat's going to go faster, there'll be less load on the leeward bow. And because you're sailing faster, it means that you can sail faster. It's the opposite of a vicious circle. It is a circle of possibility and better times. So main sheet a bit looser, you'll sail faster, which means the bows won't dip as much, which means you can sail faster, and it will just be a lot smoother. But having the main sheet cranked on the downwind is only, this might have been confused in the past. It's only if you're sailing with a spinnaker. There we go. So yeah, next time main sheet out, and it will feel much better for you, I'm sure. Will a tight main sheet give you more speed? No. Oh, but not as much downwind angle. Yeah, no, because when we're establishing our downwind sailing, the angle is what's the word? The angle is defined, can we say the angle is absolute? That is what the angle is going to be. The only time the angle would be any different is if it is so windy that we are not feeling that we're going to stay upright. And in that case, maybe sail a little bit further downwind. And yes, we'll go slower. There'll be more pressure on the bows, but it's the way of dealing with the fear. But other than that, the angle should be the same, 90 degrees apparent, and then we trim the main to that angle. Yes, if we sail closer to the wind, apparent wind would be something like this. Then yes, we would need to have the main sheet in tighter to be able to sail on this course. And yes, we will go much quicker, but the amount of distance that we'd sail to get from A to B will be huge. So if we're trying to get to a downwind goal and we want to get there as quickly as possible, then no. This is good if we're just going for speed, getting on the speed stick, if we're just having a good time and we just want to see how fast we can get the boat going. There we go. All right. Yeah, Ryan says, wow, that's a lot of water. Yes, certainly is. Raining cats and dogs. All right, Kevin in Illinois is on board. I was considering putting a port, I'd call that a hatch, on top of my Hobie 14 hulls. They're getting some soft spots, and I thought this would give it internal access. Opinion. Yeah, it is a potential, it is a method that could be used to get into the hull. Like if the deck of your boat is soft, then yeah, there is certainly potential there. The kind of like widely adopted best method for fixing soft decks is the injection of epoxy, where we drill down. Well, in theory, what we've got is the layers of the hull. We've got the let's call it the outer skin. Then we've got the inner skin. And then in between these two, we've got like the foam, because it's like a foam sandwich construction. So the idea with the injection is we drill down, but not so far it goes through the inner skin, and we do many holes in the top, and then we inject this cavity with epoxy resin, which in theory will make this section of your soft hull stiffer. And I prefer that than putting a hatch in, because once you put a hatch in, what if the area surround? So if you don't know what we're talking about, if we look at the hull from the top, so if this is a Hobie 14, here are the pylons. So what Kevin is probably talking about is making a hole in the deck forwards of the front pylon and putting in an inspection hatch. And in the inspection hatch, you'll be able to access inside the hull, which means you could try to repair it from the inside. But I would say if the soft part is quite widespread, I suppose the idea is this bit around the hatch is you're going to repair by getting in there. But yeah, worth a go. But you know, once you've cut a hole in there for the hatch, then you're kind of committed to putting a hatch in. Yeah, so what would I do? I'd go for the injection first, because at the end of the day, what have you got to lose? Put a load of holes in the top, inject it, obviously give it time for it to cure, and then see if that has solved the problem first. And then if it doesn't solve the problem, then yeah, maybe drill a hole, cut a hole in the top, put a hatch in, and then go for phase 2. Yeah. All right. Hussein says, okay, question coming in. From a half wind position, what's the difference between turning upwind versus downwind in a gust? All right. So if we're sailing across the wind on a reach or a half wind course, and let's say that the context that we're talking here is in the context of wanting to get less power. So if you're sailing on a reach and you get a gust, you feel, oh, too much power, I want to get rid of some of that. Then the ideal would be to ease a bit of main sheet. But if we're talking about just power control by steering, the way to get less power here is going to be to turn more up towards the wind. Because if you kind of think about the sails, let's say you've got the sails set, we'll just have a mainsail. Yeah, so the angle at which the sail is set, as we come up towards the wind, effectively, as far as the wind is concerned, you're sheeting the sail out. But rather than sheeting the sail out by easing main sheet, you're actually your sail is going to be looser because you're turning the boat closer to the wind. Does that make sense? Makes sense to me. There must be a better way to visualize that. But if you think here, the wind is at about 45 degrees to the sail, whereas here we can see the wind is almost blowing straight down the sail, which means we're not going to have that big wall of sail that the wind is going to hit. So turning your boat up towards the wind is always going to give you less power. Now, in a lot of the videos on Joyrider TV, when I'm sailing on a beam reach and I get a gust, I'm like, okay, let's go down the mine shaft. The reason for that is because I'm constantly going for speed runs, and the way to get as much speed out of the boat as possible is beam reach, hull lifts. Then we're just trying to carry that lifted hull as far downwind as possible, because we are going to be transferring energy from the energy that it takes to lift the hull into energy that it takes to make the boat go faster. So that is why I'm turning downwind from a beam reach in a lot of the videos. There we go. Hope that helps. All right, back into the preloaded. I think we're pretty quick fire today, I think. Cheers. Once again, my main sponsor, Karen Bennett, my wife, yoga teacher, one of the best yoga teachers on the planet. Online yoga courses, yoga classes most days of the week. If you want to do some yoga, become a bit more flexible. Yes, it's very helpful for catamaran sailors to be more flexible, both for catamaran sailing and for life. There we go. Okay, but yes, everybody's welcome to join these online classes that are going on every day, most days. I think not weekends at the moment. Okay, next preloaded question is from DSam3, who says, how do you deal with weather helm? Okay, so how you deal with weather helm comes down to what is causing weather helm. And is it weather helm or is it heavy steering? They feel the same. And in fact, I think you can call it the same thing. So the main cause of heavy steering is badly set up rudders. So what is a badly set up rudder going to look like? This is our rudder blade. If the rudder blade is allowed to go backwards at all from the boat, the further back this goes, the heavier the steering is going to get. Thanks very much to RJ Fleet for the super sticker, helping to keep the Q&A ad-free. Thank you very much, RJ Fleet. Very kind of you. And I hope that your steering is not heavy. Or if it is, maybe this will help. So if the rudder blade is further back, your steering is going to get heavier. So what we're trying to do when we're setting our rudders up is, if this is the rudder blade, we want the rudder blade so that it comes into the rudder stock at the front there, tight. And when the rudder blade is under pressure, it's not able to come back at all. It's going to stay in there. That is what we need to do in order to not have weather helm. Now, there are other things that could lead to, like, let's say your rudders aren't set up perfectly and they do come back a little bit. This happens to me sometimes. I know, difficult to believe, but yes, sometimes if I haven't had the opportunity to tune my rudders up, I generally like to give my rudders a little service, maybe every 3 weeks, if I'm using the boat quite regularly, or even if I'm not, because I want to know that if I'm going sailing, my rudders aren't going to be slowing me down. But sometimes it's not possible. So what can lead to more weight in the rudders? One thing that can lead to more weight in the rudders is if your mast is too far back, because when the mast is a long way back, our center of effort of the rig is going to be further back, and the further back we put the center of effort, the more weight it is effectively going to put on the rudders. So this is why it's so important to have the rudders set up nicely, because we do want to have the mast quite far back on all types of boat, really, because what having the mast further back does is it means that the boat is going to sail more effectively upwind, and it's upwind sailing where we need the most help, because you know the wind doesn't really want us to go that way, so we need as much help as we can get when we're going upwind. So having the mast further back is what is going to help us there. So if your rudders aren't set up very nicely and you're feeling it's really heavy, bringing the mast a little bit more upright should take a little bit of the weight off. But this is like if your rudder blade, in fact, I'm replacing my rudder blade for this rudder blade. If your rudder blade, let's say that is perfect. Hold on, where should I put this? That is perfect. That is out of tune. That is really bad. If your rudder blade is in the really bad position, there's not much that you can do about it. Something else you could do, let's say, extreme example, you've gone out sailing, you're sailing a Hobie, which, as everyone knows, has a design feature. Have I got, never mind. Have I? No. Which has the design feature, which is the rudder cam that holds the rudder down. If your rudder cam has inverted and you can no longer lock your rudder down correctly, so your rudder is sitting really far back at this kind of angle, then the only thing you can do, which is going to help to take load off the rudders, is not sheet in as much. That is the only thing you can do if the load gets too much. There we go. Sometimes sailing a Hobie 16 or anything actually, upwind, even if your rudders are set up nicely, if you're sailing upwind and you're thinking, okay, we need to be really far forwards because we're sailing upwind. Sometimes if you're too far forwards on the boat, upwind, when it's double trapezing conditions, if your rudders are feeling heavy, just try taking one step back, see what that does to your steering. That can help. There we go. All right. Steve Jones 8504 says, would having the mask on a Hobie 21 SE, do you mean the mast? Hold on, I'm trying to read this. Oh, thanks very much to Colonel Failure with his super sticker says, thanks for being you. And thank you for being you. Oh, yes. Colonel Failure happens to be my brother, who is one of the leading authorities in this type of simulator type video games, whether it's a train, a tractor. I don't know if he's done a bus yet. Let's have the bus driver simulator coming soon. Yes. All right. Thanks very much for your super sticker, super thanks, super chat. Keeping the Q&A ad free. Done it. Oh, you've done the bus driver. Excellent. Yeah. So check out the Colonel Failure YouTube channel and you will see it all there. But don't check it out until we've finished here. Tourist bus simulator. It will make you laugh. There we go. And if you like the way that I talk, Mr. Colonel Failure talks in a very similar way. Don't know why that would be. All right, back to Steve's question. Sorry about that, Steve. You know, when your brother tunes in, you've got to say hello, haven't you? Especially giving you 20 quid as well. Whew. Um, would having the mast, I'm thinking you're saying mast, on a Hobie 21 SE be tilted back also, or with a boat with a centreboard, would the mass should be straighter up for more power? All right, what we're trying to do with a centreboard boat, you know, we're not talking more power so much. We're talking just balancing the center of effort against the center of lateral resistance. So here is the boat with the centreboard. Here is the rig, much bigger, as we can see. And here is what we're looking at. And what we're trying to do with the mast rake is we are trying to get the mast rake in the sweet spot. So, and the sweet spot that we're looking for is, if we think of our center of effort of being kind of here, this kind of region of the rig. So if the center of that, I'm going to lie and say it's about there. Then we're trying to have the center of effort so it lines up with the back edge of our center of lateral resistance. The center of lateral resistance on a boat like this will be the back of the centreboard or daggerboard, if we're trying to do with the mast rake. If too upright, like if you're thinking, oh, I want mast straighter up for more power, what that is actually going to do is it's going to put the center of effort too far forwards, which means if your rudders are set up correctly, it means if you put the tiller extension down, the boat is going to want to turn away from the wind, which is something that we never want to get, because it's having this relationship here, which is really going to help the boat to go upwind better, more. So if you think of it in that kind of context, rather than in the context of power, then that is what we are looking at. No, we're not going to have the mast as crazily far back as we would do on a Hobie 16 or 14. But the reason that we're doing that on those boats is because of the hull shape. We haven't got this center of lateral resistance here. The center of lateral resistance is much further back. It's like here. So we're trying to get the rig further back so we get that same effect out of that relationship on that type of hull shape. There we go. Hope that helps. All right. All right. In the live chat, we've got SG Passian, who says, any experience with the Harken GP Zirkon mainsheet system? Would it be too much leverage in a Nacras F18 Evolution? No. So the Harken Zirkon mainsheet system is, I think at the moment, it is like the finest mainsheet system money can buy, but quite a lot of money is required to buy it. Very expensive, but it is the best that you can get. Why is it the best? It is because it has the least amount of friction and resistance, 12-1, but a lot of the F18s are a lot of the F18s are using these systems because it makes sheeting in as easy as it can possibly be. I'm very happy. You can see back here, I've got two sets of Allens. Both of these are 10-1s, and those are the ones that I'm using. Well, on the Tornado anyway, when I was sailing the Evolution. That was with the stock Harken 10-to-1 main sheet system, which I felt was absolutely fine for that boat. But if you want it better than fine, then yes, the Harken Zirkons are going to serve you well. And it's kind of like if you change boat, you just take those blocks, put them on the next boat, because they are like. So anything, you wouldn't have them on a Hobie scene, because you definitely don't want 12. You definitely don't want more than 6-to-1 on a Hobie 16. But on the bigger boats, the boats which have a 9-meter tall mast, then yes, it's definitely going to help. All right. So Boris says, finally remembered what I wanted to ask you. Excellent. What would be the pros and cons of putting the jib higher than the third hole on the chain plate, so higher up the mast? Yes, good question. All right, let's have a look at that. All right, do a bit of cleaning up. It's okay. Yeah, so moving the height of the jib, what that is going to do is it's going to alter the relationship on the boat of the tension in the foot and the leash. So do we need this? Gosh, I have to think about how I'm going to draw this picture. So what we're looking for with our jib, in fact, let's not have the boat, is for the tension in the foot to be pretty much equal or a little bit tighter than the tension in the leech. And what we're looking to do with our sheeting angle, because if you think we've got our telltales up here, our telltales down here, telltales in the middle, what we're trying to achieve, especially in wind when we're not trying to lose power, is we're trying to get the jib so that the sheeting angle is such that we can get all of the telltales flying perfectly at the same time, which means we're trying to sheet in the sail up here the same amount that we're sheeting it in down here, so that the telltales are going to give us the same reading, let's call it, which means we want very even tension between the foot, the bottom of the sail, and the leech, the back edge, which means our sheeting angle wants to be kind of like down like this. Good so far? Okay. So what happens if we move the jib up on the forestay? What it's going to do, like if this is the cleat here where the jib sheet is going to, if we move the jib further up, then what that is going to do, let's say it's just changing the distance. This is with the jib further up. So I'm moving the cleat rather than the jib, just for easiness of drawing the picture. But as we move this further up, this line that we're drawing is going to go through the clue, and it's going much further up. So what that is going to do is that's going to put too much tension down through the leech. And what we're trying to avoid with the jib especially is, if this is the jib, this is the mainsail, we're trying to promote, before what we're trying to avoid, we're trying to promote having clean airflow around the back of the mainsail. So we've effectively, over our rig on the boat, we've got 3 different lines of airflow. Back of the jib, through what we call the slot, which is the gap between the jib and the back of the mainsail, and over the windward side of the mainsail. The boat would be like that, in case you're wondering. If we have too much tension in the leech of the jib, what's going to happen is this, which I think you should probably be able to see what's going to happen there. The wind's going to come off here. It's going to hit the mainsail. We're going to have turbulence, backwinding. Also, this bit of wind is not going to be directed as effectively because it's just going to separate when we get here. And that is why we're not moving the jib much further up. Yes, we could move it up a little bit. And if we've got an adjustment on the clue, where we've got maybe four holes, okay, where we've got all these different holes, our normal setting would be that one. As we move this further up, we could put it in the bottom one, which should have a similar kind of vibe to it, but it's more efficient to keep the jib lower down. So there we go. Hope that helps, Boris. Hope to put a bit of clarity into that. All right, so preloaded question. And if we can just not have any further questions in the live chat, unless you've already chucked in a super sticker, or unless it's accompanied by a super sticker, that would be great. All right, this is a good question, because you may have thought this yourself. Why is it, this is from Christian, why is it that I'm often talking about letting off the downhaul to stop the mainsail from flogging? All right. Or actually, before we go on to this, Boris has just followed up with, I was thinking more when there is a light breeze. Yeah, in a light breeze, you're going to get this hooking. Hooking means too much curve in the jib, so it's still going to be too much. So we want to keep the jib in that same position. You could go to hole number 4 in light wind, to 3 in trapezing conditions. That would be the only change that I might make on my boat if I was wanting to really get the most out of it. But usually I would keep it in number 3, so that if you've got too many variables, you're kind of chasing your tail a little bit, because you're like, oh, I've moved the jib up there. All right, I've moved it on the clue plate, and now the boat is not going as well. What do I need to change? So I'd rather keep it in the same place at the front, only change it on the clue, and then at least you know which. That. All right, so why is it? Here we go. That the mainsail from flogging. Okay. If we look from above, when you put your mainsail up, here is the mast. In fact, let's have 2 masts. Here is the mast. Your sail, looking from above, if we don't put any downhaul on, will look something like this, shapeless, because we haven't tensioned the luff. And what happens when we tension the luff is it puts curve into the sail. Now, why does having this curve in the sail make it flog when it's windy? What happens is the wind is blowing kind of roughly onto the front of the boat. And when the sail is bent this way, the wind is going to hit this side more, this side less. And what that's going to do is get the sail get the battens in the sail to go the other way. And then as soon as they've gone the other way, we're going to get the same thing on the other side. The wind's going to hit the battens on that side. They're going to flip. And it's this constant changing sides of the battens, which is flogging. And what that flogging can lead to, will lead to, if you sail a boat which has got a boom, is the boom violently swinging, which is very dangerous. So times like when the boat's on the beach, no downhaul. Until you're ready to actually start sailing the boat, no downhaul. What about if you have to stop, or if you want to stop because you're going to have to eat or a drink or something, let the downhaul off. Maybe it's really windy and you're out racing between races, no downhaul. What about you've capsized, you're really windy, you could bring the boat back up from being capsized, let the downhaul off, and it means when the boat comes back upright, you're not going to be greeted with a violently flogging mainsail. Everything is going to seem so much more relaxed if you let the downhaul off. And then when it's time to start sailing, pull the downhaul on, sail the boat. Very nice. But yeah, so that is the vibe with the downhaul and why it makes the mainsail flog. All right. So there we go. Hope that helps, Christian. Thank you, everybody, for coming along today. Yeah, we were a day late today because of the weather here and the frequency of power cuts and internet failures yesterday. So big news. Well done for being here at the end, because you learn about the big news. Show Us Your Cat is returning to Joyrider TV tomorrow, unless you happen to be a channel member, in which case probably 10 minutes after the Q&A is finished, you will be able to, actually it might be already. Oh no, I paused the upload. I paused the upload of Show Us Your Cat just to make sure that it didn't interfere with this broadcast. But as soon as it's a channel member, you'll be able to watch Show Us Your Cat. Otherwise, usual time tomorrow, Show Us Your Cat. And yes, it's coming from the 50th anniversary regatta Nacras in Australia. And we're featuring one of the best refurbished boats we've ever seen on Joyrider TV. That is no word of a lie or exaggeration. So check that out. All right. So yeah, Christian's just in there at the end. Oh, he's just missed it, but I'll see it on the review. Yes. YouTube didn't send me a notification. What are you doing, YouTube? Come on. We wouldn't want your viewers not to be getting notifications. All right. Okay, thanks for that, Christian. And oh, thanks for the super sticker, Christian. All right, lovely old job. Keeping the Q&A ad-free. All right, thanks very much, and I'll see you soon with some more on Joyrider TV.